And here again, please don't be judging. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Just be happy that you're here and that you're hearing all this. It might kind of create some uneasy feelings, always, oh, it's not good enough what I'm doing. But also that doesn't really help. Whatever we've done until now, that we have done. We can't change that. But we can always refresh our motivation. Start again. Start again with more energy, with more interest. So don't go into feeling bad about ourselves. It's really not helpful. And it's one of the biggest hindrances on this path, not having the confidence that you can do it. So then there's two other attitudes that go with those four that we looked at. For the ones who are familiar with the Lam Rim, you might have noticed that two are missing. So one is Buddhist. So that means one learns, one has the attitude that all these other manifestations of Buddhas that we use as basis for our meditation, for inspiration, like Tara, Chenrezig, Manjushri, and so on. All of those are an aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha. But they're just different aspects, they're not separate from the Buddha. And then the last one, the sixth one, is that one has a wish for this cure, for these teachings to remain for a long time, so that as many people as possible can benefit from it. Not because you want to go on a mission, not because you want people to become Buddhists, but in order for this world to become an easier place to live in, that there's more peace, more love, more wisdom. The wisdom of what brings happiness and what brings suffering. And not just for oneself, but for all others as well. So if one has this wish and this attitude, the best way for these teachings to remain for a long time is to behave according to the teachings. So that you become an inspiration for other people wanting to apply that cure. If they're completely put off by your behavior, why would they want to practice what you're practicing? And again, with this point, be very careful that you're not going on a mission, you're not becoming a missionary. You don't want to make people Buddhists. It's a very personal thing what kind of spiritual practice one is doing. If somebody wants to listen to what you say, and they ask, you tell them. If not, please leave them alone. For you, as a spiritual practitioner, it's quite important that you have one path, and for you that path is the right one. But that doesn't mean that there's many, many other paths who are just as valid and just as beneficial that exist next to your path. or that last attitude, a very strong wish for beings, for people to find a path that helps them to become more peaceful, more open, happier and kinder and wiser, instead of creating more and more causes for future suffering. So it's good to think about these points again and again and again and again. We tend to forget and kind of jump into whatever we're doing, and then we're surprised when the result is not so fantastic as we thought. So again, these methods, they're being offered to you. Either you find them helpful and you apply them, or you don't find them helpful at all, and then you don't apply them, and then maybe you find better ones. This is totally okay. This is absolutely not a problem. Please don't go on a mission and tell everybody that Buddhism is the best. If you're a Buddhist, then yeah, Buddhism is the best for you, but that doesn't mean that it suits other people. I think we should really start to make an effort to have more contact with other people who are doing spiritual practices. And I was telling Kaya about this. We have in Bern, we have what is called the House of Religion. And I got very involved in there, and I'm really inspired by this place, because there's 5 religions who have their own room under the same roof. There's a mosque, there's a church, there's a Buddhist room, there's a Hindu temple, and there's a derga, like of the, what's it in English? Alevites or something like that. And then the rabbi of the Jewish people are also involved, but they don't have their own room, but they are present from time to time. And then there's Baha'i, and then there's Sikhs. So we constantly interact with each other, but everybody does their own thing. And I think it's really, for me, this is a way, this is a small place where the world, if we can spread that out, can survive in a more peaceful way. That other people do different things. It's okay. And we do our own thing. In the Buddhist temple, we don't need to mix and make a big soup of something. It's okay, but we respect each other very much. We know quite a lot about the other people's religions. It's very interesting, and we listen when they tell us about their religion. I'm not saying, yeah, in Buddhism it's like this, and they say this, and that. No, we just listen when other people explain about their religion. And I find this place so inspiring, and I really like to be there. It's a small universe of peace and harmony in diversity. It's really nice. So we can create that around us by having good relationship with other practitioners of other traditions, without needing to kind of convince them that what I'm doing is much better than yours, isn't it? So please don't go on a mission. Also, if people don't go propagate, I'm a Buddhist, so that's what the Dalai Lama says. People know how Buddhists should behave, so you better not tell them, because otherwise they start criticizing you that you're not behaving like a Buddhist. So better keep it calm, like that. And then also, the spiritual practice is there as a mirror, not as a window where you look out what other people are doing. We love to do that, because then I don't know why, because it doesn't even make you feel better when you see other people doing stupid things that are harmful. Yeah, it doesn't make us feel better, by the way. It makes us feel worse. So also, it's quite good to take the mind. Sometimes you have to take the mind like a child and put it in another direction and start to look for positive things that are happening in the world, and not just for the negative things. Because if you see the positive things, it makes you happy. the happier you are, the more you can make other people around you happy. The more unhappier you are, you know, you're tense and you explode about every little thing, you get angry very quickly and so on. So these kind of things I would like you to bring to the discussion group, you know, how your spiritual practice has helped you in your daily life. And you share your experiences. And it's all about talking, one person, and listening, the other person. Not bringing your own opinions, because then you can't learn anything. You know, that also in the discussion groups, we hear something, but then immediately we want to bring in our own opinion in order to be kind of a bit certified that this one is true. No need to give other. You just, if you had experiences of advantage but also disadvantage, I'm not saying there's only advantage, then please share that with each other. You know, the joys and the difficulties, the hardships and all that. And then you have to make a promise, kind of that whatever is said in the discussion groups, it doesn't go out somewhere where it's not supposed to go out. If you use it as examples, then please not with names and not with, you know, in a way that other people would know who that is. You see what I mean? So it's also a spiritual community. We have to learn to be able to trust each other so that we're not going to gossip. Yeah. So, but this sharing is quite, it can be quite powerful, and it, you know, it gives that group that feeling of belonging. When we have a feeling of belonging somewhere, this is why people want to belong somewhere, even if it's something very harmful. I can't remember which hormone is kind of put out. If it's endorphin or oxytocin, I think it's oxytocin. Yeah, when we have a feeling of belonging, then that's put out, and then we're happy. So, you know, better choose a group that you belong that is not harmful, I think. Yeah, then maybe other people can also be happy about this. Yeah, so the sharing and this connection is very important for us also, so that you don't get so lonely or depressed or whatever. You still have your question,
Yes. Very in line with what you said is the definition of happiness. Would you say there is a difference? What is the difference between may all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes, and all sentient beings be happy?
Are you asking that question for other people's sake?
I'm asking it, I'll tell you later what I asked. I'm asking it because we discussed it on our weekly meeting, and we came up with some. The reason why I'm asking, never mind.
What is the question?
Yeah, so the question is, what is the difference, like about happiness, what is the difference when you kind of, you in the four immeasurables, you have like 4 steps, right? So one is you say, or you think, and your heart is totally open, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. And then the other one is, may all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. So what is the difference between the two? Is that right? Well, again, you know, from the, I'm sure that Laura knows it, so you can thank her because she asked for your sake, I'm pretty sure. From the scriptures, like one is love. And the definition of love is wanting somebody else to be happy, no matter what, you know, even they are not suffering, but still you want them to be happy. And then the other one is called compassion, which is, in my eyes, is a bit more active. Like when I have, like for example, again, there also, you might have heard it many times, I'm sorry for those people who come every year. When I call somebody and I'm a bit nervous, kind of thinking maybe that somebody is not well, and I call them and say, how are you? And the person says, wow, today I'm really well. I have this surge of happiness coming, me. The heart is really open, there's no pain. But when the person says, today is really not well, it feels different. It feels, because also with the may they be happy, I don't need to do anything. Yeah? But I'm rejoicing in their happiness. I feel love towards them. Whereas when they say, today I'm not well, it's stronger, and there's a wish, immediately, can I do something? For me, the second one is more active, but you might have found something totally different, I don't know. Yeah. So, maybe when you say, may they be happy and have the cause of happiness, like for all of us, even when we are so-called happy, there is subtle suffering of the all-pervasive conditioned suffering, or there's the suffering of change that is there. No, it's not suffering of suffering. So then you can say, whereas the other one is like you can really see the suffering. This is for us unrealized people. We need to see pain until our heart starts to kind of wake up a little bit. So we have very natural compassion for the children when they're lost somewhere. We don't ask who do you belong to. Yeah, we do, because we want to bring them home. But we're not thinking, I don't know what family that is. Or we reach out immediately when you see a small child lost in a crowd. This is natural compassion that we have, because we're not afraid. We're not afraid that we get stuck with the kid. We might get stuck because maybe, we don't know, maybe it doesn't have any parents, or parents abandon it, we don't know. When it's a cat or a dog, children's parents are easier to find than dogs and cats. I'd say owners. So our compassion is always a bit calculating and a bit, I don't know, and it's good, because otherwise we totally get overwhelmed. So, being kind and developing compassion and love and compassion doesn't mean you throw your own life and your wisdom out of the window. It's no point you take all the homeless home with you and then your family moves out. It's like you have to be reasonable also. At least the wish for them to be happy and to be free of suffering. This is what one is developing first. Because once the wish is there, then you can abandon a lot of your own comfort and you're not suffering. Because otherwise, if you act too quickly, then you regret it at the end, because you're stuck with that person. This usually, I don't know if, up here it doesn't happen, but in Europe, when you have city centers, people with a lot of compassion, they collect all these very bad smelling homeless people and bring them to the center and dump them there. So then we kind of get stuck with them. Okay, so of course they can take a shower if they want and all this, or in Bodgaya also, I don't know if you know Adriana, she has about 150 dogs, because she takes all the dogs that are sick. So people full of compassion, they pick up the dog and bring it down to Adriana and don't even pay for the medicine and for the food. So that's not, then they feel very good about it. So if you have a place like this and you want to help, or if you want to help the homeless people, then you can always support an organization who is helping them, for example. There are things we can do for them, but again, it's very personal. But the main thing is that you develop the attitude with these thoughts. Love and compassion is a training. We don't believe this, but this is how it is. If you have that thought, may they be happy, have the causes of happiness, may they be free from suffering and free from the causes of suffering, then the compassion actually develops, and then it becomes much more natural. Do you believe it when you hear that? Mm-hmm. And for me, compassion is, as Chogyam Trungpa says, it's the sore spot in your heart. That because we have a body, and mirror neurons, we know what it means to be in the street. So we hurt ourselves. Now the problem is, and then the ego comes back in again. So this is why discussion groups, so please let people talk, and you listen, if possible, actively, like you really listen, even if you think it's boring. Just really listen. It's also a practice that one does, okay? So, but when we hear somebody else's suffering, when they tell us about what is happening with them, then we kind of, because of our own experience, and then we go back and we get stuck in our own experience, and then we get too much identified with it, and then we have a wish to tell them our own suffering. I never heard so much about broken limbs than when I had a broken wrist. Everybody was telling me about their broken bones.
Like pregnant women.
Yeah, this I don't know. Yeah, so it must be the same thing. If you're pregnant, then they all tell you about. this is what, because we know how he feels, and then we're not so aware that actually mine is finished, so it's about this one suffering, so then we leave. Okay. Okay? Yeah, but it sounds a bit like the same, because suffering is always there. Like the 3 kinds of suffering are always there. Yeah, so when we say like may they, because then there's the third one, the joy. Yeah, when you say may they be happy after causes of happiness, we actually think about worldly happiness. Because without worldly happiness, this we talk about this afternoon, without a life that goes pretty much okay, you cannot practice. Yeah, so that's what you wish them. And then the wish to have this trans-worldly happiness, to be free, to have good rebirth and be free from negative emotions. This comes in the third part, where you say, may all beings never be separated from that happiness that knows no suffering. Yeah, may every being be able to discover their Buddha potential. That comes then in the third one. And then in the fourth one, we start to think, well, what is preventing that? Is that we are too close to some. Then we get angry when they're getting hurt because they're too near to us. And we're too distant from others that we don't want to know about. We hate them and we can't bear to be in contact with them. And most of the beings in this world we don't care about. They're too far away. So then to create this equanimity. So then there's different ways and different methods also with these 4 immeasurables. Some, they say, for beginners, I think it is Sangha who says, for beginners you should start with equanimity. Because otherwise the other one is very biased again, because it says, may all beings be happy and be free from suffering. Not just the ones I like. So that's a huge step, you know, to kind of allow everybody to be happy. Okay, so we're going to eat now in 6 minutes. So usually we offer the food to any inspiring object that you have, and you offer it in the name of all beings. Yeah. So that, because from offering food, one is by offering your food before you eat it to an object of veneration. I use the word, or an object that you respect. You cut your attachment to food. That means you use your food as medicine. And I know for some people that will be, what? You know, where will my happiness come from? Well, I'll tell you, the happiness is not in the food. The happiness is in your mind. And the purer your mind and the happier your mind, the less you need all these incredible, fantastic foods, and you enjoy everything that is there. It's as simple as that. We have to make all these complicated dishes because we're not hungry enough to experience pleasure. That's why. So we're not waiting, you know, we don't know hunger. So because one projects into the food happiness, then if it's simple food like here, you know, then how many were happy about the soup last night? Because if I don't have that soup, I have nothing. It's enough reason for me to be happy. Because I have nothing to eat with me. So that means if I don't have that soup, I have nothing. Then, good enough. Okay? So, and then also if it's not too good, you don't eat too much of it. So that's great. Okay? So then we offer the food to any object that you respect, and on behalf of all other sentient beings, so that, you know, this attachment to food can be kind of lowered a bit, because so many people suffer because of too much food. So many people suffer because of not enough food. There's like absolutely no balance there. The environment suffers because we overproduce all this. It's like, oh, we want to have all this choice and always only the best and this and that. And it has become a habit of the first world, that everything has to be spotless and beautiful and this and that. And we throw away so much food. I mean, it's like incredible. While other people go hungry. Yeah, so one becomes more aware when you offer it. Also, you become more aware of what it is. It's nourishment. It's not a source for happiness. It's nourishment. So then we eat it with this kind of awareness. We say thank you. to Mother Earth, who still keeps feeding us, although we are exploiting and exploiting and exploiting and exploiting. Don't even say thank you. So when you look at the food, you think, wow, so many beings are involved in making this food. Yeah. Then don't go, yeah, but the cook was no good. Okay. He's doing his best. He's not making not delicious food on purpose. Okay. It's not what he intended to. Just like this. And simple food is good because, as I said, you don't eat too much of it, and it's better than no food. So I'll say the verse, or I think it's in your book here. It's a very nice contemplation, actually, of offering the food. I always get confused with these, where is the pages, where do I turn, what is up here? Page 29, which is for me at the beginning and for you at the end. Now what is right? Is it the real beginning or is it the real end? There we have emptiness. Yeah? It's neither. It's neither the real beginning nor the real end. It's just page 29. I contemplate how much positive potential I have accumulated in order to receive this food given by others, because we didn't even have to cook it. I contemplate my practice, constantly trying to improve it. I contemplate my mind, cautiously guarding it from wrongdoing, greed, and other defilements. I contemplate this food, treating it as medicine to nourish my body. I contemplate the aim of Buddhahood, accepting and consuming this food in order to accomplish it. Then you imagine the food as blissful nectar. It's all in the mind. You can transform it into blissful nectar. Inside a vast jeweled vessel, and we recite 3 times. Oma, Om, Oma, Om, Oma, Om. Then the offering goes like this. So this is Buddhist, okay, but you can offer it to any other object. To the precious Buddha, the peerless guide. To the precious Dharma, the peerless refuge. To the precious Sangha, the peerless liberators. To the 3 jewels, we make this offering. This food, which has 100 flavors, is mouth-watering and well-made. We offer with faith to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. May all beings enjoy the food of concentration. We see this food as medicine. We eat it without attachment or aversion, not to increase arrogance, strength, and good looks, only to sustain the body. And don't worry, if you lose your total interest in food, you'll find interest in more beneficial things and more happiness, cheaper, less harmful, like, developing love, compassion, and so on. So, but please enjoy the food. That's important. Somebody has made that for me. So many beings are involved in bringing this about. Thank you very much, you say. May I be able to do something for you. I kind of dedicate my spiritual practice for your happiness. Then your heart becomes very wide, and then it doesn't matter so much what is in the plate. Yeah. And you don't have to be afraid to go somewhere where you don't like the food. You can go anywhere. Whatever is there, you eat it with a lot of pleasure. So please enjoy.